When my daughter-in-law stood up at the will reading and declared I was getting nothing, the lawyer didn't cry. He laughed, and that's when I realized Colton left something behind that she didn't know about. I didn't plan on speaking that day. Grief has a way of sealing your mouth shut, turning every breath into a negotiation between breaking down and staying upright. But when Sienna Vale, my daughter-in-law, stood up in that dark walnut-paneled conference room, heels clicking like a gavel, face carved into marble, and said, "My father-in-law intended for his assets to pass exclusively to me. Ilara is no longer a beneficiary." I felt something split inside me, not loudly, not dramatically, more like the quiet tearing of a page from a book you wrote your whole life. For a moment I saw nothing but white, not anger, not shock, just static. My ears dimmed, as if someone had placed their hands over them. Then came the sound, low, unexpected, absolutely inappropriate. Laughter. I turned slowly toward the head of the table, where the estate attorney sat adjusting his glasses. Mr. Harland wasn't known for humor. In the 10 years I'd known him, I'd never seen him smile. Yet there he was, huffing a breathless, bewildered laugh that echoed in the cold air. Sienna's jaw tightened. "What's funny?" she demanded. Harland cleared his throat. "Nothing. Nothing at all." But his eyes grazed mine, and for the briefest second, there was something like pity or warning. I didn't understand it then, but I would. Soon. The events blurred after that. One moment I was in the conference room. The next I was standing alone in the garden behind our home, Colton's home, staring at half-empty cups left by guests, too polite to ask why the widow was silent. The smell of lilies still clung to my clothes. The folding chairs sat in crooked lines like soldiers who'd lost formation. Everyone had left. Everyone except the quiet ache inside my chest. Colton would have hated the funeral Sienna arranged. Cold, efficient, rehearsed. Not a single moment of messy humanity. No laughter, no memories shared, no fumbling for tissues. Just a slideshow and a schedule. He used to say that funerals should be unbuttoned, loose, honest, real. A celebration, not a presentation. But Sienna loved control. She always had. When I walked back inside, she was in the dining room gathering papers, her movements crisp and practiced. She didn't look up as I entered. "We'll be moving forward with the final legal processing next week," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "I've already coordinated with the firm." "No mention of you okay?" "No, how are you holding up?" "Just business." And then, as if offering the spare scraps of a meal, "Oh, he wanted you to have this." She handed me a small box, matte black, smooth. Inside was a tie clip, silver. Simple, a tie clip. Colton had written me hundreds of notes over our decades together. We had boxes of letters between us, scribbled thoughts passed under doors, messages taped to mirrors. But in the end, a tie clip, no letter, no explanation. Sienna offered a polite, hollow smile and walked away. I felt my throat close. That night, the house felt unfamiliar, like someone had shifted the walls 2 inches to the left. Colton's books still lined the hallway, worn spines softened by years of love. His aftershave still lingered near the bathroom door. The cane he used during his final months leaned beside the back door, exactly where he'd placed it the last time he walked inside. But it all felt distant, like museum pieces arranged for display. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had long since gone cold, and for the first time since he passed, I felt like an intruder in my own home. Have you ever looked around the rooms you've lived in for decades and felt as though you've been gently swept out of the photographs? That was me, that night, and it was only the beginning. The next morning I received an email from Sienna's assistant. Not from Sienna, not from the firm, from her assistant. Subject line: Estate Administration Meeting. Mandatory attendance. Location: Vale and Associates, Floor 14. Time: 9 a.m. Wednesday. No greeting, no warmth. Just a sterile invitation to the dismantling of my life. I didn't want to go. I considered deleting the email and pretending I never saw it. Pretending none of this was happening. Pretending grief was the only thing floating in this house. Not suspicion, not confusion, not betrayal. But something in my chest tightened. Something instinctive, protective, quietly furious. So I went. The receptionist's eyes flicked up as I entered the sleek glass lobby. She smiled politely, but her gaze slid over me like I didn't belong there. I followed her into a long conference room where 7 people sat in dark suits, perfectly aligned like chess pieces. Sienna sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect, expression unreadable. She didn't greet me. She didn't even nod. She simply lifted her chin toward the farthest chair, the only empty one, placed so deliberately distant it felt symbolic. I sat, alone, forgotten, unwelcome. Sienna began speaking in the sharp cadence of a CEO presenting quarterly results. Per the finalized documents, the estate's primary assets are as follows. She listed commercial properties, trust accounts, long-term investment portfolios, the winery shares Colton had once been so proud of. She spoke with clinical precision, stripping the man I loved of all his warmth and history and compressing him into line items. My name was not mentioned once. At the end, one of the associates asked, "And Mrs. Wynn's allocation?" Sienna didn't look up. There are no remaining distributions assigned to her under the current filing. The current filing. A phrase that should have meant nothing. A phrase that changed everything. The room went silent. Not sympathetic silence. Not awkward silence. It was the silence of people who knew the script, but didn't know what to do when one actor forgot her line. I sat completely still, my hands trembling beneath the table. Sienna continued packing her folders without glancing my way. I stood slowly, feeling the cold air settle around me like frost, and walked out without a word. Downstairs, the city noise slapped me back into reality. Cars honking, footsteps echoing, people living, while my world quietly collapsed. I didn't remember driving home. But I remembered sitting in Colton's study, the one room Sienna hadn't stripped yet. The drawer squeaked. He always meant to fix it. Inside were old receipts, pens, sticky notes with grocery lists, faded envelopes, all meaningless, until something caught my eye. A small unlabeled manila folder wedged beneath an old ledger. My fingers hesitated. Then I opened it. Inside were 3 pages. The first was handwritten. Colton's handwriting. Uneven. Shaky. But unmistakably his. It read, "Sienna wants me to update the will. Says it's just for clarity. But something feels off. I haven't signed anything yet. I need to tell Ilara. But not yet. Not until I'm sure what she's doing." My breath stumbled. The second page was a draft will, annotated, circled, corrected. My name had been there, my share clearly stated, and then crossed out. Beside it was a note. Discuss with Sienna. The third page was a list of legal consultations, meetings I never knew he attended, consultations that happened while he was sick, tired, vulnerable, meetings Sienna arranged, meetings I wasn't supposed to know about. The folder felt heavy, too heavy. I placed the pages on the desk and pressed my palms to my eyes as tears finally rose, after weeks of numbness. Colton had doubted her. He had tried to protect me. He just hadn't made it in time. I didn't sleep. I sat in that study until dawn, rereading his note over and over. Then I made a decision. A small one. A quiet one. But a decision, nonetheless. I picked up my phone and called the only person I trusted enough to tell. Draven Holt. A man Colton trusted. A man who knew the law, but, more importantly, knew Colton's heart. He answered on the second ring. His voice was steady, familiar. "Ilara? I need your help," I whispered. He paused. "I'll meet you tomorrow." Draven sat across from me at the corner cafe on Elm Street, our old comfort spot where nothing ever changed. He didn't speak right away. He waited, patiently, the way Colton used to. I slid the folder toward him. He read every line in absolute silence. Then he exhaled sharply. "This wasn't carelessness, Ilara," he said softly. "This was intentional." I didn't need him to explain what intentional meant, but he did. The dates didn't match. The signatures were suspicious. The corrections were inconsistent with Colton's previous legal habits. The witnesses listed weren't local. And Sienna's role in the document revisions was far deeper than she pretended. Draven reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a pen. "We're going to get to the bottom of this," he said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't harden. It anchored me. For the first time since Colton died, I felt like someone saw me. Not a widow, not a leftover, not a footnote in someone else's inheritance. Just me. That night, after speaking to Draven, I searched our house for answers. Not obsessively, not frantically. Just carefully. And in the back of the hallway closet, beneath a stack of old magazines Colton saved for no reason other than nostalgia, I found another document. A draft trust addendum. Unsigned. My name was written clearly, purposefully. Beside it was a note in Colton's handwriting. "We talked about this. Sienna said she'd handle it. Me? My future? My erasure?" I copied the document and placed it gently in my handbag. Tomorrow I'd show Draven. Tonight I sat alone in the dark house, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the ache of quiet spaces. And for the first time since Colton died, my sadness shifted into something sharper. Not anger, not revenge, resolve. The next morning I received a call, one that revealed Sienna hadn't just rewritten the will. She had begun rewriting Colton's life before he even died, and what we uncovered next would shatter everything I thought I knew. The morning after I found Colton's hidden notes, my phone rang, and the voice on the other end told me something that made my blood run cold. I was still sitting in the kitchen, fingers wrapped around a mug that had lost its heat hours ago, when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something pushed me to answer. "Mrs. Wynne?" a man's voice asked. "Yes." "This is Halston Givens. Colton came to see me a few months before he passed. I think you should know what he said." My breath caught. I had heard the name before. Colton had mentioned him years ago. A tax consultant he trusted. Someone he called a numbers man with a soul. Halston continued, voice heavy with hesitation. "He came to me confused, unsure about changes being made to his will. He said Sienna was handling the paperwork. He didn't look well, and he was worried." Worried. The word punched through my chest. What was he worried about? I whispered. There was a long pause. Then he felt pressured, and he asked me if it was normal for a family member to restructure control while the primary trustee was undergoing treatment. I froze, restructure control, while he was sick, while I was sleeping in a chair beside his hospital bed, while Sienna was flying in and out of the city like she had wings. Halston cleared his throat. He wanted to make sure you were protected, but he never came back for the follow-up meeting. Sienna called to cancel it. I felt the world tilt. She canceled it. She canceled the only meeting where Colton tried to protect me, without telling me, without giving him a choice. Mrs. Wynne, Halston said softly. Whatever was happening, Colton knew something wasn't right. My throat tightened. Did he leave? Anything with you? Any notes? Any instructions? No. But he kept saying he needed to talk to you, that he was running out of time. I closed my eyes. Of course he didn't make it. Of course he thought he had more time. Halston offered to send his meeting notes, informal, but time-stamped, a trail of truth. When the call ended, I sat quietly in my kitchen, heart trembling with a mixture of grief, fury, and fear. This wasn't just manipulation, it was orchestration. I forwarded the notes to Draven. Within minutes, he called back. Alara, this changes everything. How bad is it? I asked. His voice softened. Bad, but good for us. He asked me to meet him that afternoon at his office. When I arrived, his desk was covered in printouts, sticky notes, and timelines. But what drew my attention was the red marker circling a date on one of the documents. Look, he said, tapping it. It's the date Colton updated the trust. Or rather, the date Sienna claims he updated it. And? I whispered. And Colton was hospitalized that entire day. He physically couldn't have gone to sign anything. My mouth went dry. Are you saying the signature? Yes, Draven said quietly. I'm saying it may not be his. I exhaled shakily. If she forged it, she won't get away with it. His certainty softened the shaking in my hands. Then he added, We need a specialist. Someone who deals with probate fraud. Someone who won't be intimidated by Sienna's firm. I already knew who he meant. He had mentioned her once before. Mira Leston. Mira Leston was exactly as Draven described. Sharp, still and observant, in a way that made you feel like your heartbeat was being measured. She shook my hand gently before sitting across from me, pushing her dark-rimmed glasses up her nose. I've reviewed the documents you sent, she said. The timeline is troubling. Troubling. Professional code for something far worse. She lifted a page from the folder. This signature, if it was notarized on a day the office was closed, as the metadata suggests, that alone is grounds for questioning the entire document. My breath caught. And this, she continued, tapping Colton's shaky handwritten note, is evidence of doubt. Judges care about doubt. Then she leaned closer. You are not imagining this. You are not overreacting. Something was done behind your back, and we are going to uncover it one piece at a time. Her calmness steadied me in a way I didn't expect. What happens now? I asked. We start with preservation. We file a motion to freeze the estate temporarily, so Sienna can't move any assets until the truth is clear. I swallowed. And if she fights back? Mira's voice turned gentle. She will. People like Sienna always do. But I've dealt with worse. Her confidence was a balm I didn't realize I needed. After meeting Mira, I returned home feeling both lighter and heavier. As I walked through the hallway, something tugged at me. A memory. A whisper. A feeling. I opened the old file cabinet in the garage again. One drawer. Stuck. It hadn't stuck before. I pulled harder. A folder slipped backward deeper into the cabinet, as if intentionally hidden. My breath hitched as I reached inside. It was another draft, another version of the trust. And this one had my name on nearly every page. Housing protection, healthcare provisions, survivor support, financial stability. In Colton's handwriting, circled in pen, non-negotiable for Ilara. My vision blurred. He had tried. He had tried so hard. I copied the document and texted Draven immediately. He replied within seconds. "Bring it tomorrow. This is huge." I held the folder to my chest, feeling the weight of it. Not paper, but love Colton left unfinished. Just as I sat down to breathe, the doorbell rang. No one stood at the door. Only an envelope slipped silently through the mail slot. No return address. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Inside was a glossy printed card. A tribute event, hosted by Sienna, at the country club, in Colton's name. Classy, elegant, a perfect facade. But on the back of the card, stamped in small print, was a detail only someone paying attention would notice. Transition of estate leadership to be acknowledged publicly. Publicly. She was making it official, before the legal dust had settled, before truth had its say, before Colton's voice could be heard through the pages he left behind. I felt something inside me lift. Not rage, not despair, but a sharp, clear resolve. If she was performing, then I would show up, not as a broken widow, but as the truth she wasn't expecting. I walked into Sienna's tribute event wearing the very thing she feared most, the proof she thought she buried. What happened when the room saw it changed everything. I didn't go to Sienna's tribute to cause a scene, but the moment she saw what I brought, her smile collapsed. The night of the tribute event arrived colder than winter had any right to be. A sharp, metallic cold. Like the air itself was warning me. The country club's parking lot was already crowded, shimmering under rows of ornate lantern lights. As I stepped out of my car, the soft chatter of guests drifted through the air. People dressed in polished suits, elegant gowns, exchanging delicate condolences that held more routine than heart. Inside the ballroom glowed with warm light bouncing off glass chandeliers. Everything was curated. Subtle jazz, white roses, photos of Colton displayed on golden easels. But something felt wrong. His smile in the photo was the weak one. The one taken during chemo, not the vibrant, mischievous grin he wore for most of his life. Sienna had chosen that one on purpose. A softer image. A quieter man. Easier to rewrite. People turned as I entered, offering polite nods. A few murmured greetings. "Ilara, it's good to see you. How are you holding up?" Such a beautiful event. Sienna really outdid herself. Yes, she always did. I scanned the crowd until I found her. Sienna Vale stood at the center of the room, wearing a sleek navy dress, her hair in a perfect twist. She laughed lightly with a group of board members, hand placed elegantly on her collarbone. Near the right wall, a long table displayed items labeled Colton Wynn's Favorites. The sight nearly buckled my knees. A vintage pen, a first edition novel, a signed baseball, a pocket watch, all from our home. Items she had taken while I was buried in grief, silently, efficiently, without asking. The novel in particular stopped me. I had given it to Colton for his birthday. Inside the cover I had written, "For the love who made my quietest days full." I flipped the cover open. The message was gone, cut out, with a razor blade, a clean surgical removal. My heart trembled, not with sadness but with clarity. Sienna wasn't just removing me from the will. She was removing me from Colton's story, rewriting the narrative like an editor with a red pen. A man in a dark suit approached me. His smile was sincere, his handshake warm. "I'm Ezra Clark," he said. "Colton and I worked together for 10 years. I'm so sorry for your loss." I thanked him softly. Then he asked casually, "How are you managing the trust these days? I assume you're still overseeing the primary allocations?" I blinked. My voice was barely a whisper. I'm not the trustee." Ezra frowned. "That can't be right. Colton always said you two shared that role." "We did," I said. "Until Sienna." His brows furrowed deeper. "Sienna told the board the transfer was finalized months before he passed. She said it was his wish." The room spun for a moment. She hadn't just hidden it. She'd misinformed the board. She'd crafted a story where Colton handed everything over willingly. Ezra gave a hesitant smile, excused himself politely, and walked away. But the damage was already done. Her lies reached farther than I realized. 15 minutes later, gentle music faded, and Sienna stepped onto the small stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice smooth as satin. She spoke about Colton's legacy, his influence, his generosity. Then she said a line that tightened every muscle in my body. "I am honored to continue the work Colton entrusted to me. His vision now rests in capable hands." Capable hands. Hers. She didn't say my name. Not once. To her, I had already vanished. When she stepped off stage, something inside me hardened. Not grief, not rage, not fear. Resolve. I reached into my handbag and pulled out a single envelope. The copy of the notarized statement from Aylin Pierce, the assistant who had witnessed signatures without Colton present. The truth Sienna hoped would stay buried. I didn't walk toward her. I walked toward the board. Toward the circle of people Sienna spent months charming, persuading, reshaping. I approached Ezra first. "I think you should see this," I said quietly. He opened the envelope. His expression shifted instantly, from confusion to realization to concern. "What is this?" another board member asked. Ezra hesitated, then handed it over. The envelope traveled, hand to hand, through the group. Confusion deepened, voices lowered, brows furrowed, whispers rose like smoke. "What does this mean?" "This signature, this date. She wasn't present?" "This is irregular." Across the room, Sienna noticed the shift. She excused herself from her conversation and approached slowly, like a lion sensing something wrong in the grass. "Ilara," she said tightly, "what are you doing?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I'm letting them see what you hid." She reached for the envelope, but Ezra blocked her hand gently. "We're reviewing this, Sienna." Her eyes sharpened, darting through the pages the others held, and in that moment, just 1 second, she lost her mask. Her smile cracked, her perfect posture faltered, because for the first time she wasn't in control. A board member gestured Sienna aside. "I think we should discuss this," he murmured firmly. Sienna protested, her voice hushed but sharp. "That document is taken out of context. Ilara is grieving. She's confused. This is inappropriate." But the room had already shifted. Suspicion spread like ink through water. I stepped back and watched quietly. The truth didn't need me to perform. It was speaking loudly on its own. A board member gestured Sienna aside. "I think we should discuss this," he murmured firmly. Sienna protested, her voice hushed but sharp. "That document is taken out of context. Ilara is grieving. She's confused. This is inappropriate." But the room had already shifted. Suspicion spread like ink through water. I stepped back and watched quietly. The truth didn't need me to perform. It was speaking loudly on its own. I didn't wait for the fallout. I didn't need to witness the board's questions, the whispers, the unraveling. I had done what I came to do. As I walked toward the exit, the cold air from the hallway brushed my cheeks like a silent applause. I wasn't the shadow at the edge of the room anymore. I was the truth walking out the door. The next morning, Sienna's lawyer sent me a letter threatening everything, from my reputation to my future. But she didn't know what Mira and Draven found that same day, and it would turn the entire case upside down. The morning after the tribute event, a letter arrived, threatening my silence. But Sienna had no idea what evidence Mira and Draven uncovered that same day. The sun hadn't even risen when the knock came. 3 sharp taps, not the hesitant kind of a neighbor, not the polite tap of a delivery driver. It was the kind of knock that carried intention. Cold, heavy, official. By the time I reached the door, the visitor was gone. But on the porch lay a thick envelope stamped with the emblem of Sienna's law firm. I brought it inside, my hands trembling slightly, as I tore it open. Inside was a letter written with the kind of legal precision meant to intimidate. Cease and desist from interfering with lawful estate administration. Withdraw all inquiries immediately. Refrain from contact with board members or face legal action. Sienna hadn't wasted a second. My hands tightened around the paper. Every line was designed to make me retreat, to make me doubt, to make me small again. But I wasn't the woman trembling in the corner of that conference room anymore. I set the letter aside, made myself a cup of tea, and took a slow sip. The truth doesn't shake. Only lies do. At 9:15 sharp, my phone rang. "Ilara," Draven said, voice energized. "We found something." I straightened. "What is it?" "Can you come to the office right now? Mira wants you here for this." His tone, steady but thrumming with urgency, sent a chill through me. 10 minutes later, I was out the door. When I entered Draven's office, Mira was already seated at the conference table, her silver pen tapping rhythmically against a folder thick with documents. She nodded as I sat. "Thank you for coming." Draven stood with his arms folded, jaw tight, not with worry, but anticipation. Mira slid a stack of printed emails toward me. "These," she said, "are internal messages from Sienna's firm. We obtained them after filing our preliminary motion." At the top of the first email was a subject line. "Revised draft. Remove spousal provisions." My stomach dropped. I read the lines beneath. It was Sienna, directing her paralegals, coldly, systematically, to strip my name from Colton's will and trust, line by line, clause by clause, erasing me, like I was a typo. Mira leaned forward. "These messages show intent, deliberate alteration without legal consent. This alone is enough to request a full audit." But she wasn't finished. She opened another folder. Inside was a printed spreadsheet with timestamps. "These are document edits," she explained. "Now look at the time of this revision." She pointed. Sunday, 7:43 p.m. My heartbeat thudded. "That's when Sienna claimed Colton signed the new pages," Draven said quietly. "But we checked hospital records. He was sedated, completely unconscious." The room blurred around me. They had him sign while he was unconscious? Draven shook his head. "No. Ilara. He didn't sign at all." Mira tapped the signature box. This signature is inconsistent with every verified sample of Colton's handwriting from his medical forms. A forensic analyst confirmed there are tells, hesitations, unnatural pen lifts, tremors that weren't present in his real handwriting. I stared at the paper, vision hot with disbelief. Sienna forged his signature. Mira nodded slowly. With help from someone inside the firm. My breath trembled. My hands curled into fists. Colton had trusted her. He had believed she was helping him. She used his illness as her stage. Draven spoke gently. We can file an injunction today. The court will freeze everything. Accounts, property, transfers, until the investigation is complete. Something warm and burning spread through my chest. Not anger. Justice. Sienna's letter sat in my handbag. A threat. A warning. A desperate attempt to reclaim control. But now, it felt like flimsy paper. I looked at Mira. I want the injunction filed. She nodded without hesitation. We'll submit within the hour. And, I continued, I want the board informed. Every member. Draven smiled softly. Already ahead of you. Some reached out after last night. Last night, the tribute event. The truth that slipped through her fingers. I inhaled deeply, letting the moment settle. For months, Sienna wrote the story. Now she was losing the pen. When I returned home, the house felt different. Less like a mausoleum, more like a witness that had been waiting for this moment. I walked into Colton's study. For the first time since his passing, I didn't feel crushed by the air in the room. I ran my fingers along the edge of his desk. I found it, Colton, I whispered. The truth you were trying to warn me about. The wind outside rustled a tree branch against the window. A soft tap like a quiet acknowledgement. I sat in his chair, placed the forged documents beside his real handwriting, and closed my eyes. He had trusted the wrong person. But he had loved the right one. And love, honest love, leaves clues. Just as I began to breathe more steadily, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A familiar, sharp voice cut through the line. Ilara, Sienna hissed. What did you do? I didn't respond immediately. You embarrassed me. You undermined me. Do you understand who I am? I almost smiled. Yes, I said softly. I do. You're going to regret this, she snapped. My lawyers are welcome to call Mira Leston, I interrupted. Silence. A cold, heavy silence. She knew the name. Everyone in the legal world did. Ilara, she said again, but this time her voice trembled. A crack, a fracture in her armor. What are you trying to accomplish? I answered honestly. The truth. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a moment. Then I exhaled. Sienna Vale, the woman who believed she could bend reality to her will, was finally afraid. The next day, a whistleblower stepped forward, someone who had been inside Sienna's office during the fraud, and what she revealed would destroy Sienna's entire defense. The woman who finally exposed Sienna didn't knock on my door. She whispered my name in the hallway of Mira's office. The day after Sienna's furious phone call, Mira asked me to come to her office again. Her tone was calm, but something about it felt heavier, like she was holding news too significant to share over the phone. When I arrived, the front desk assistant didn't even ask my name. She just stood and said quietly, Ms. Leston wants you in conference room B. The door was already open. Inside, Mira sat at the table with a woman I didn't recognize. She was young, mid-30s maybe, with tired eyes, nervous hands, and a cardigan that looked too thin for the winter air. Her hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, strands escaping like they were trying to run from the weight on her shoulders. The moment she saw me, she stood a little too quickly. "Hi, Mrs. Wynne," she said. Her voice shook. "My name is Aylin Pierce." The name struck me. Draven had mentioned an assistant at Sienna's firm, a witness who might know something. Aylin took a breath so deep it looked painful. I'm the one who notarized some of those documents." I froze. Mira gently gestured for us to sit. Aylin clasped her hands tight, knuckles white. "I didn't know what I was signing at first," she whispered. "It was just paperwork. Sienna said it was urgent. She told me Colton had approved everything, that he was aware of the changes." My heart pounded. "But he wasn't," I said softly. Aylin swallowed hard. "No. And I didn't realize until it was too late." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, its corners bent, pages worn. "I wrote everything down," she said. "I didn't mean to at first. It was just habit. I take notes for everything. But then things started feeling wrong." She flipped open the notebook. Inside were entries, dates, times, scribbled observations. And then she pointed to one line. "Sunday, 7:43 p.m. Witnessed signature. P not present. Sienna said he just stepped out." I felt the room tilt. That was the night Sienna claimed Colton had signed the revised trust. Aylin continued, voice trembling. "He wasn't there. I never saw him. She told me not to worry. Said he'd reviewed everything earlier." A tear slipped down her cheek. But then 2 days later, he was hospitalized, and I realized he couldn't have been in the office at all. Mira placed a comforting hand on her arm. "You're doing the right thing." Aylin nodded shakily. "I know. I didn't want to lose my job. I'm a single mom, and Sienna, she's powerful. She threatened to make things difficult if anyone questioned her." Her hands shook harder. "But when I heard Alara was challenging the will, I couldn't stay quiet. I couldn't let her erase you from the story." My breath caught. Erase you from the story. Exactly what it felt like. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you," I said softly. "You're brave. More than you know." Aylin cried silently, relief and fear mingling across her face. Mira turned to me, her expression sharp with purpose. "With Aylin's testimony, the email trail, and the forged signatures, we have enough to request a formal investigation, and enough to bring Sienna's actions under full legal scrutiny." Draven entered the room then, holding another folder. "We just received the hospital records confirming Colton's sedation schedule," he said. "The timestamps prove he couldn't have signed anything that weekend." He placed the records beside Aylin's notes. The truth, for the first time, was visible on the table. Not suspicion, not fear. Facts. Aylin wiped her eyes. "I'm willing to testify I kept copies of everything because something told me I might need them." She reached back into her bag and placed several printed forms on the table. Documents with metadata, signatures, annotations. Proof, undeniable, unavoidable, unforgettable. Draven nodded gratefully. "You just changed everything." By the afternoon, Mira had filed the formal motion to investigate potential fraud, undue influence, and unauthorized document alteration. The court responded faster than I expected. Emergency injunction extended. Full audit approved. Estate assets frozen pending investigation. Sienna had officially lost control. I stared at the email, blinking back tears. Not triumph, not revenge. Justice. The kind Colton deserved. The kind I deserved. The kind Aylin risked everything to uncover. The next morning I received another letter, but this time it wasn't from Sienna's lawyers. It was from the Foundation's Oversight Committee. Due to recent findings, Sienna Vale has been removed from her executive role pending the audit. A temporary board will reassume control. Removed. Not paused. Not questioned. Removed. I exhaled. A long shaking breath that felt like the first full breath in months. Moments later, my phone buzzed again. Sienna. I hesitated, then answered. Her voice was nothing like the sharp, confident tone she used before. Ilara, please. Just one word. Not commanding, not threatening, pleading. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. I just thought I could help manage things. Colton trusted me. He always said you worried too much, and I... You forged his signature, I said quietly. Silence. Then a choked breath. I didn't know what else to do, she whispered. I thought it would all work out. I didn't expect you to fight. Fight, the word stung. Not because it wasn't true, but because she never thought I would. She never thought I was capable, or strong, or aware. She underestimated me. Colton trusted you, I said, to support us, not replace me. And then I ended the call, not angrily, not cruelly, just finally. 2 days later, Mira and Draven accompanied me to the Foundation's board meeting. The room was tense when we arrived. Not hostile, not cold, just waiting. Waiting for truth. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for answers. The chairman stood. Mrs. Wynne, he said, we owe you an apology. We acted on information that was incomplete and manipulated. I nodded, voice steady. All I ever wanted was for Colton's wishes to be honored. And they will be. He gestured to a seat near the head of the table. Please, sit with us. For the first time since Colton died, I didn't feel like a ghost sitting at the edge of the room. I felt present, needed, seen. A week later, Mira called me. Ilara, she said softly. The audit is complete. My breath caught. And? Your name will be restored to the trust. Every provision Colton intended for you, all of them, will be reinstated. I closed my eyes as tears spilled freely. Mira continued. And the court is opening an inquiry into Sienna's actions. The board has banned her from any future involvement with the Foundation. It was done. Everything she tried to erase, restored. Everything she tried to claim, reclaimed. Everything Colton tried to protect, finally safe. That evening I went to the small lake near our old house. The sky shimmered with bruised purple and gold as the sun dipped behind the trees. I held one of Colton's letters in my hand. A real one. Not a forged signature. Not a rewritten clause. A note he left for me years ago. If you ever doubt your strength, remember I married you because you carried storms like feathers. I smiled through tears. I did it, Colton, I whispered. I carried this storm for both of us, and for the first time in months, the ache in my chest loosened. Not gone, never gone, but manageable. Because truth, once spoken, never fades again. Because love leaves clues that lies can never cover. Because I finally remembered who I was before the grief, before the silence, before Sienna tried to write me out of my own story. I was Ilara Wynne, and I was never meant to be erased.